All right, I'm sorry we're a little bit late. We were waiting for the camera to get set up. We'll call this meeting to order, 7 o'clock. We're on the schedule for an hour and a half, so we'll go until about 8:30. Please make sure that you sign in at the door so that we have an accurate attendance list. If you haven't signed in, please sign in. And then if you speak, please identify yourself for the viewing audience. Are there any additions or corrections to tonight's agenda?
I have one.
Yes.
Could we add an executive session for a legal matter?
Certainly, we will do that. Anything else? Okay. Members of the public, if you're here for something other than what is actually on the agenda, which is the information meeting, since this is a legal meeting, we can speak to that now. If you're just here to ask questions about the upcoming vote, then we have a section for you. All right. Anybody with any correspondence? Okay. On to the information meeting. Really, rather than present any sort of overview of this, the easiest thing is just to go ahead and let you ask your questions so that we can try and address anything you want. I mean, we've tried. There's a mailer that went out today, you'll probably get in the next couple of days, that has some basic information on it. I know we've put out some things, there's been newspaper coverage, there's been the televised meetings. Really, this is just more to answer questions that haven't been answered in all those forums. So anyone who wants to ask a question, please help yourself. Yes, sir.
I'll begin. Lucky Feltzu, Newfane. First, I wondered if you could tell me if the town of Wyndham has any legal financial obligation to the WRED. If so, what, and what would be the impact on the district with either a yes or no vote?
Well, a no vote. Right now, Wyndham is a member of the West River Education District for grades 7 through 12. Although they have asked to have a vote to allow them out of that. If they are not voted in on June 11th, so there's a no vote on June 11th, then that second vote would have a financial impact. They would have to pay their share of the outstanding bond, which is around $50,000. And then we would not have the guarantee of those students, so we would lose ADM. The yes vote would bring them in as a member for pre-K 12. It would change the budget this year by the amount that they've said it would take to run their school, and presuming then that they became a full member of it, they would just continue to make the bond payments. The tax rate would change a little bit in Wyndham going forward, and it would change for the rest of us too. A yes vote raises the tax rate by a penny in Townsend and Jamaica. It stays the same in Newfane and Brookline, and it reduces the tax rate by 30 cents in Wyndham. Did I cover everything, or?
Yeah, and okay. So if they do not stay in the district, is there any arrangement for them to fulfill that current financial obligation, or is that slate white clean on their part and the district absorbs it?
The $50,000 bond payment, they would have to pay that if they were allowed to leave the district. They would have to pay that when they left. Okay. So they would. That's a different vote, yes. But there are two votes than one, and each one has a different financial impact.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Andy Snelling from Townsend. I just want to make sure I understand some of the facts, but it's my understanding that Wyndham has voted as a town that they do not want to participate in this district, K through 6 or 7 through 12. And that if if we vote to allow them or force them into the district, that some of the tax rates go up. We accept 17 students on a per student basis that is more expensive than the rest of the district. And that per the district rules, that if we were to want to close the Wyndham Elementary School in the future, it would take a vote from the residents in Wyndham to do that. Do I have those facts correct?
Yes.
Okay. Given those facts, would anybody like to make the pro vote or the yes vote, the recommendation of why a yes vote would make sense?
As a board, we're not taking a position as to whether the public votes yes or no. That's your decision, and we're not making a recommendation. We're just trying to present the facts. Wyndham has a path to follow, and while we're not trying to obstruct it in any way, we're just giving, the information and letting people make their own choice. There's certainly an argument to be made there. It certainly simplifies the district operations to either have them all the way in or all the way out. The way we have it now, with them halfway in and halfway out, complicates things for them as well as us. But it's all just kind of part of the process. First this, and then there would be that second vote, and every town would have to actually vote individually to allow them out of the Leland and Gray portion. So, that would be then, if this vote were to be a no, then there would be a second vote that would have to be a yes in all 4 towns. And I expect that Wyndham would work pretty hard to educate people why that would be a good idea.
I guess I would have, I honestly want to see the different perspectives. And I haven't really heard from anybody that was in favor of the vote. So if there's anybody here that's in favor, I'd like to hear the argument.
We would like to have more opportunity for our kids. And there's more opportunity down in the valley with after-school programs. We think it's really important for our 6th graders.
Are you from Wyndham?
Yes.
Okay.
We think it's really important for our 6th graders to start at Leland and Gray with their graduating class, rather than come in as, 5 or 6 students in 7th grade. So a lot of us parents, and a lot of parents want to stay, they don't want to merge, but there are parents that do want to merge. And there's a lot of people that don't have kids that would like to merge because they want their taxes to go down.
Okay.
For me, it's also, an opportunity for my younger children that are just starting school to be able to have a preschool option to go to as well, where Wyndham does not have a preschool option. Right now, I live in Wyndham, and my daughter goes to a school in Manchester.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to see her go to Townsend. And right now, with Townsend, if we join the district, there will be no out-of-pocket cost for me besides my taxes.
I live in Wyndham. My kids are 47 and 50. They started school here, went on to Leland and Gray. The town of Wyndham has been associated with that school district at Leland and Gray for about 50 years now. And I've asked around, and I can't find anybody that tells me where there was any issue that ever wasn't dealt with properly and up front without problems. It would help on my tax bill if we could lower our tax we're paying, I believe now $24,600 something per student. That's a pretty high cost statewide average. The main underlying reason for Act 46, which our local representative did vote for, is to level the playing field statewide so that every kid in Vermont gets equal opportunity for the best education available. That was what it was all about when it was Act 60, then 68, and now 46. And I strongly feel, having experienced the schools in the valley, Floodbrook, other schools in this area, that we are not offering what these facilities have to offer. And I think it's important for the kids to have opportunity for that. And another thing about the vote, not everybody in Wyndham voted. That's their problem. The people that did vote did win by a narrow margin when we voted on Act 46. I believe it was an 8-vote spread. That's not many votes spread when some of the people stayed home. That happens in all the towns. But I would be curious as to see what an Australian ballot about that would mean today if, with this new information available, what that would bring out for voters and what the results might be. And I think it's only fair to our kids to get the opportunity, the best opportunity, within our jurisdiction to go on with their education. And I think it lays down here, not Wyndham. That's my opinion.
Thanks. Mike, you had a...
Just to address what you were talking about too, for me and for a lot of other people, the issue here, and I have empathy for what these Wyndham's
You don't have
parents
to empathize with me, that's my...
No, I know, but I do. I have empathy for Crystal. Some of the things that she said in meetings make sense and seems legitimate to me. But the slippery slope here is having 5 towns vote to overturn certified votes of a town. And that town did vote 3 times on this issue in different formats. One vote was close, but it was still almost 11% margin. Those 8 votes was almost 11%. And then the other weren't even close. I mean, they were like hundreds of percent margins, you know. So that's the slippery slope. And, you know, 10 kids in Wyndham next year, $450,000 budget. That's the question that's being asked. Do we want to take that on? That's it.
Thanks. Back in the back.
I was at a meeting a little while ago, and I heard Emily Long say that she was not for closing small schools. And so when I listen to what Aaron and Crystal are saying, I'm seeing that the kids, it's almost, I guess my question for you is, what are you going to do as a board to support Wyndham, to support the small schools? Are you going to help us develop a preschool program? Are you going to help us work up there to expand our after-school program? Are you going to help us, the pamphlet talked about equal opportunity. What are you going to do as a board to help us provide those opportunities so that our school doesn't have to close because people don't have those conveniences of having an after-school program where their kids can go? Before you say that Wyndham it may not have the same opportunities as some of the bigger schools, but we have a lot of amazing opportunities up there that you don't get at bigger schools. There are really good things about a little school. So what I'm asking you is, how are you going to support that? Because if we join this district, already we're only going to have 10 kids next year. If that. You know, Crystal has a child that we thought would be in kindergarten. So that's my question, and I'd like to hear from the board.
I don't think we can get into any real specifics on that, because since Wyndham is not a part of us and has been pretty adamant that it doesn't want to be a part of us, we haven't really had that conversation at the board level. If this vote does go forward, that would be a conversation we would have over the course of the first year, because we would be responsible then for running, you know, and educating those children. You know, we have, in this first year, we've done some things that have expanded opportunities for the children that we are responsible for in our first year of running things. And I know that the board, you know, we've had conversations at the board level about what we can do to continue that, how we can build on what we have, how we can leverage our strengths. And you're right, Wyndham does have some programs that are strengths, that are unique to Wyndham. And I think we would look to do that, but until it's actually real, we haven't had that conversation. But, you know, we have done what we can with the districts that we're responsible for, and we would do that for all of our students.
It seems like it would be important for people to know if they're making decisions about whether to move their children out of the town that they live in to some other school to know what Wyndham is going to be able to offer. What equal opportunities are you going to help us provide up there? And there's not going to, because of this whole time frame of all this, that's not going to happen.
It wouldn't happen year one. Year one would be just take the money that Wyndham has budgeted and continue operations pretty much as they are. The middle schoolers would come to the middle school, and we would offer the choice opportunity, so Wyndham could gain some students because parents would want to send their children there, or parents could choose to do otherwise. But the first year there wouldn't be time to do that, nor have we had a chance to have that conversation.
Have you thought of the school choice about transportation? Like, if parents did want to take their kids up that hill every morning, would there be transportation?
No, our transportation policy does not, our choice policy does not guarantee transportation. It does allow for transportation of students if there's room on existing bus routes. And I think there's some minor tweaks that are happening to accommodate things, but we specifically do not transport choice students. You really want to talk?
I do. I think it's really important that when we start talking about student equity, we're not talking about having educational programs that are cloned building to building. In fact, this board had a very long discussion about how it is important to have school buildings that are unique and to support the cultures and programs that are in these schools. And I think that's what we're doing going forward in the next year, and I don't see this board changing its position that the school culture and the school environment that's created in each one of the buildings that we operate is unique to that building. We don't want 4 elementary schools that are identical in every possible way. We want 4 elementary schools that are providing equitable education to the kids in their own unique ways. And that's one of the advantages to having 4 elementary schools, unique programs, and choice. Parents will have the opportunity to put their students into the culture, the environment, the program that best fits their kids' educational needs, their family wishes. But I think we got to be very careful that we're not creating equal. We're creating equitable, which means that we want to provide that education, but it's okay for each school to be different. And I think it's an opportunity that Wyndham could shine. It's an opportunity where Wyndham can have programs that are different. And just because you're a small school on top of a mountain doesn't mean that you can't have equitable education. And I think it's a great opportunity. What does that look like? We haven't got into the daily operation of this building. We haven't discussed the daily operation of Townsend's building or Jamaica's building. That is not what we're doing. Each of those buildings has a unique culture and environment, and those staff members, those principals, those administrators are working to, better their programs, but make sure that the opportunities are across the board for all students. I hope that clarifies the equal versus equitable discussion.
Yes.
I'm thinking also, as I said last night, and I'll say it again, the transportation issues and the issues of supporting any school, Wyndham or any other school, in terms of programs, you keep saying repeatedly and have been saying for months, we can't look into these, we haven't looked into these, we haven't had time to look into, it just goes on and on and on. But the fact of the matter is you're asking voters to make a decision that is going to impact for years to come, not just for 1 year. I mean, this isn't going to just turn over overnight. And yet you're refusing to say, you won't even consider the ramifications, not only to us, but to them. What are you going to do? Are we going to have transportation? Aren't we going to have transportation? You're saying you're not required to provide transportation for choice. We're not being chosen, we're being required if this vote goes through. So how do you explain that to people that you don't know what that's going to cost, you don't know how it's going to happen, but vote for it, folks, because that's what we want. How do you explain that? I'd like to hear from other board members, and not sure that I object to hearing from you, but I'd like to hear from some of the other board members. What do you think? Why do you think that this should go forward without answers to those questions that affect everybody involved?
I think one answer to the transportation question is, number one, if it's a real bad snow day, I'm sure the board and all of the local principals and teachers and parents would wisely, even if the school didn't call, they could call a no-snow, call it snow day. You don't travel. I think, if anything, if Wyndham, for example, or the district maintained the bus, which stayed in Wyndham, they could just, they could shorten the transportation route by just getting the kids to Route 30, period. And then they'd pick them up at West Townsend. Wouldn't that shorten and make the transportation issue a more reasonable possibility in the long term? Even looking at it in the short term. Wouldn't that be a reasonable alternative to what's going on now? You'd actually shorten the bus route as far as how far you would have to deliver the kids.
Sure.
I just want to say that it's not the board's responsibility to determine bus routes.
True enough.
And so I don't want us to get into the nitty gritty. The board's job is not to be standing in the school saying this is what you need to do. We have a superintendent and we have principals and we have staff, but there's a chain of command. And anyway, I just want to keep our focus on.
But who pays for that? You're saying it's not your responsibility, and I appreciate
I'm not saying that we are not responsible. We are responsible for what is happening. I'm saying that we don't stand and direct traffic.
I understand that, and that's admirable, but you are taking over systems where there are systems in place that you are going to be responsible, if this vote goes through, for managing. And you're going to be responsible for the cost of managing them.
Yes.
If you don't have plans for opportunities and programs, if
So
you don't have plans for bus transportation.
We will do exactly what's being already done. We're taking the budget that is already that Wyndham came up with, said this is what it's going to take, this is how we're going to run our school. We are saying, okay, that's what it takes to run your school, we're gonna do that, that's the number, we're gonna do that.
And when it takes twice as long for that transportation to occur, what happens?
Why will it take twice as long for the transportation
Because
to
you've got
occur?
twice as many kids coming down the hill.
We're not taking twice as many kids. You said this last night too. Excuse me for a minute. Let me clarify for the public, because once again, you're confusing the issue. We are not moving the Wyndham Elementary Schools off of Wyndham Hill.
I'm not
We
saying
will be
that.
operating the Wyndham School the same location the Wyndham School is in. Those kids are going to ride the bus the same amount of time they did last year, the year before, and the year before that. The only difference that for next year is that the 6th grade students will be riding with their 7 through 12
Right.
siblings. That's the
twice as
only
many kids.
difference in the bus
That's twice as
route.
many kids.
But the bus route is the exact same.
No, it's not.
I think they actually run 2 bus routes. They pick up 2 of the kids and bring them down and then drive back up the hill and pick up the little kids. And we may have to,
So are they going to run the 6th graders on a different bus? You're just going to put them on the 7th graders.
right, but there's still like extra time to pick up more kids.
Because they have to make an extra stop. They have to drive the extra couple miles to the extra.
It will take some research, look, hold on. Hold on. There's like whole progression of people who want to speak, and I've ignored a young woman out there who had her hand up a long time ago and has been blown off, and I apologize. Because this has been an ongoing dialogue. We can continue to answer these questions and you can continue to cut, but I'm gonna actually let you speak because I know you
My
want to.
question is pretty simple. It's just, I think I understand what happens if it's a yes vote and Wyndham merges. I think I know what happens, but what is the plan? Like, what is the consideration for this year's current 5th graders who are going to be in 6th grade next year? There's this like gray line that's happening because Wyndham is technically part of the middle school is part of this district, and next year, I mean, you're reconfiguring middle school to have sixth grade be there. So whether the vote goes through or not, what is happening with our sixth grade next year?
We have spoken with our attorney about this and been advised to wait until after the results of this vote, and then we have some options to deal with that. And until this vote has happened, because, you know, obviously if this is a yes vote, the sixth graders are gonna be at Leland and Gray. If not, then we do have some options, and, you know, we'll explore those really quickly so that we can get an answer for those sixth grade kids. You're welcome. Tristan, and then in the back.
Thank you, Joe. I have two questions. In this document, you refer to West River Educational District.
Which document? Just the one. Okay, thank you.
West River Educational District, and you also refer to West River Modified Union Educational District. Are we talking about two different districts? When will it be, when do you decide that there's only one? If you look at page 3, there's WRED in the charts there about money. On the first page, you're talking about something or other else.
In the warning.
WRED appears in the second large box, fiscal 20 as presented to the WRED revote on the Wyndham 712. So my question is, which district nomenclature are you using now for what we have? Do you follow me?
I'm still trying to figure
The
out which
legal
document I
name
was looking for.
is on the warning, the West River Modified Union Education District. For simplicity's sake, we use West River Education District as an operating.
Isn't that confusing to some if they're not sure which district we're talking about?
It, I guess it could be, yes.
Yeah, I would just encourage continuity with whatever your nomenclature is. I'm assuming ETR means estimated tax rate, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I have one other question. Sure. What does $450,000 cover? And I'd like a little bit of detail, please, because there's none in here.
$450,000 is the budget that the town of Wyndham passed to run their school. That we just took their number and plugged it in. That's, you know, all their special education costs, transportation, meals, teachers, staff, everything. That's, you know, building maintenance. We have not, as a board, looked at their budget detail, but at this late juncture, we would not want to redo their budget. We'll just take that number, run the school with what they say it's going to take to run the school, and then moving forward, try and, you know.
So that was a pre-existing number that Wyndham developed for what they needed in order to accomplish what they expected to do in a fiscal year.
Yes,
Thanks.
exactly. Okay, in the back.
I just wanted to say, when you're talking about the transportation, that on step-up day, 5th and 6th graders are coming down, and we have the bus driver figure out what time they would be picked up. The first child would get picked up at 6:10, the next one at 6:20, the next one at 6:25, because they have to go to the north end of the town, come down. I'm just wondering, we've been wondering for a while anyway, will you be providing a bus, or will the parents have to bring them to the bottom of the hill? Have you talked about this at all?
We have not.
It's huge. It's huge for the parents.
And if it becomes our responsibility, we have people that figure this out, and we will task them with getting it figured out quickly.
To bring the kids downhill.
To whatever needs to be done.
And people are supposed to vote based on your statement that after all this time, we still haven't talked about it.
It doesn't make sense to talk about it until it's a reality.
Well, it does. If I go to a bank and want to get a loan for a business, if I go in and say, trust me, when this is all signed and you give me the money, baby, I'm going to tell you what a great job I'm going to do.
Using that analogy, if you go to the bank and you get a loan, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. You had a hand up, Bucky?
Yeah, last challenging question for you.
Thank you.
It's my understanding that some of the Wyndham students go to schools other than Wyndham and the West River Education District. So my question is, what is the total number of preschool through 12th grade students in Wyndham, and what proportion of the preschool through 6 students currently are in the Wyndham school? What are the numbers that we're talking about of children?
There are 6 students in the 7 through 12 at Leland and Gray. There are 16 students in pre-K through 6, and Gail, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 students in pre-K?
Kindergarten through 6 is 17 students.
17, okay. And then there's 6 in 7 through 12, and pre-K, 9. So 9, 17, and 6.
But is that all of the
No, and that doesn't
K
count.
through 12 students in the town of Wyndham?
That is not all of the
How many
pre-K.
of the students go elsewhere at the current time?
I do not know that. I don't know.
Carolyn knows.
You know, I want to clarify something. It was stated earlier that we do not provide, I'm Carolyn Partridge, I chair the school board in Wyndham. It was stated earlier that we don't provide pre-K for our kids, and that's not true. We do. We have always been very thoughtful about planning for this and doing our fiduciary duty to our taxpayers. If we have 4 or 5 children in pre-K, we have in the past, we do have somebody that's certified to teach pre-K, and we do provide, you know, we have had pre-K at our school. But when the numbers have gone down, it's made way more sense and it's been way more cost effective to allow our parents to choose the pre-K that they want to attend. And that's what we've done. So there are children who have gone to the little school in Weston. There are kids who have gone to Timpson Hill. And what's the other? Oh, Montessori and Londonderry. So I know that there's been a question about a preschool child who's been going to a school in Manchester. It's not, I think, an approved school. And so that might have to change, but we do provide, but those kids are going to other schools than Wyndham.
Okay. So maybe the question that I should ask, and to clarify my interest, is K through 12.
So there's 23
No, the total number in Wyndham.
school-age students?
Yes.
I do not know that.
You know?
Well, yeah, how close can we get to that number? I think that's a valid question that Bucky's asking.
I think most of the children who are K through 6 are attending Wyndham. And in terms of the high school, there are 1 or 2 who are going to Green Mountain Union.
Okay.
And that's because we have public school, high school choice.
And we do have many homeschool,
Many.
many homeschool kids.
Right, yeah, Megan Parsons.
So, checking the math, it's 23 K to 12, but 2 go to school elsewhere, so 25 maybe, and then 9 pre-K that you were taking out of that equation. So 25 or so kids?
And then the whole school?
And then the homeschool kids, but we don't have a way to track those that I'm aware of, do we? We do?
No, I mean, as the superintendent, I get a monthly report. I just don't have.
Talking
Okay.
5, 10, 15?
No, 6.
Yeah, I would say it's much closer to 5 or 6. But again, these are not real numbers. I'm making an estimate.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
The problem that exists here for us is, I'm from Wyndham, and the problem that we're facing as a state is a decreasing population and a decreasing children's population. The United Nations has a group of scientists, if you will, that have projected out that our population in the world is going to go from 7 billion to 11. But the number of 14-year-olds in that time frame is now at 14 years and will remain at 14 years for that foreseeable future. So there are not new children coming in because the birth rate, according to this study that the book is this thick from the United Nations, tells us that the birth rate is less than 2%, two children per woman, where it used to be 6.8. And that population growth is not going to start filling up our schools. We built a school in Windham when I was there for 50 children. And we're down from 50 now down to whatever it is. We sometimes have children that's only one in one class. I don't want if I had children, to be the only child in that class. So we have a lot more to talk about is education for these kids that aren't going to find more kids coming in. The cost is going up, and we talk about the hill coming down and the buses. I mean, this is a big problem, and I think you have to come together as a state as to how to address the best way to get education. And I don't hear that. I don't hear that. I don't hear where we're going to get jobs into Vermont for young families to come with kids. The population's going down in Vermont. So we got to rise above this and talk about the real problem that exists. You got people who can't pay their school taxes. The state has to take money out of income taxes to subsidize their taxes because they can't afford to do it. I mean, you can't take from this pocket and put in that pocket and not have an answer to how are you going to fix it. So, you know, those of us that want to pick a different school, I can understand that. I went to a one-room school. My mother took me to Brooklyn. I went to an elementary school and flunked the 3rd grade. And what happened was my mother said, no, leave him go to the 4th grade. I graduated with math honors. I went to the best high school in New York City, a science high school. I chose that school. I went to the Navy to fly an airplane in the Pacific, and they gave me a test. And they sent me to Duke University to become an engineer on a ship. I mean, education is what did it. From a one-room school to a big school in the city, and then to Duke because what? I mean, we got to get with this, folks.
Yes, sir.
Even on a more local level, if you look at what's published in the news, if we can believe it, the state statistics tell us that we're losing 1,000 children a year in our school system. And that's been going on now for like 10, 11, 12 years. That's, even if you use 11, that's 110,000 kids that aren't going to school anymore anywhere in the state. So people have to get it into their head that this consolidation is a way to bring your resources together and try to do as much as you can with smaller resources, more consolidation, and tap those resources. I went to one board meeting you held recently, and the gentleman was the new principal of Townsend. He's got some fantastic ideas he's implementing up there. They're just amazing to hear his enthusiasm and his eagerness to make it better for the kids. That's what we need to do. And somebody, I wish I could think of his name, he wrote a letter in the Reformer recently, and he was kind of against this consolidation. But he was starting to realize that we have to treat our school communities as more towns coming together as one community to educate all the kids within the parameters of that whole community, all these towns. And that's what, to me, the goal should be in this instance, is to bring these little towns, some of the towns are bigger, but pool the resources and get the best thing you can for the end product coming out the other end. And problems will happen. I've heard some thoughts about what would happen if we closed Wyndham and sold it to the town for $1 and sold the bus and then started, can't remember if the word private was used or there's another word was used. Anyway, they wanted to maybe explore that possibility. But there's a lot of open questions about what and if. One of the things would be you'd have to get that whole school recertified. And I've been told that those meetings, that takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months. So you talk about a problem of trying to educate your kids at a local level in Wyndham, if you went that route, there's a lot of problems there that haven't even been identified yet. And I really think that communities have to get along on these issues and deal with these. To me, these are little problems, and they can be dealt with. And there's a lot of good minds on this board to deal with those, and you'll have good replacements when you get old and get off the board. That's what we've got to do. We've got to look at things from a larger scale because we're losing our resources, which is our kids. I think the people of Wyndham really think that they're doing the best they can with what they have, and they work hard at it, and I give them credit for that. But I think there's a bigger picture. And from what I hear tonight, that school could stay there, remain operational, and participate in this community effort to bring more of those things to this bigger group. And that, like Ernie said, that's what the board has to do. That should be part of your job with a lot of input from the public. But don't keep arguing these issues and creating havoc in your communities. Jamaica was a little bit testy last night. This is a little bit testy tonight. We've got to learn to communicate this stuff and make things work, make them better. It's all about the kids. That's what Drew likes to say. It's all about the kids. And that should be the main thought in everybody's mind in this room.
Absolutely.
Let's try to work it
You hear a lot
out.
of talk about like budgets and money and numbers. You know what? I'm sorry, but that should be second. Priority is children. What is in the best interest? And I know that there's a lot of people who have a different opinion about that. But it's just about listening to each other and like really understanding like what is best for the children. And it's resources. Resources are the best. Having like teachers who have resources to, I mean, I'm an educator, like the next generation standard science that are being required of teachers to teach right now, like that is huge. Like there is a huge science requirement, there's a huge math requirement, like Common Core, we all hate it, but it's reality, like that is what's happening. We need resources to be able to provide that to our children because we all want our kids to go off to college and that they need that.
I'm interested in what the ideal size would be for an elementary school in today's environment, both from an educational point of view of what would provide the better education, and also from the economic point of view. If I'm not mistaken, I may be slightly wrong on this, I believe Townsend at one point had 8 one-room schoolhouses, and I'm pretty sure that Newfane was similar in number at one point in time. Obviously, the means of transportation were considerably different in those days.
Honestly, size is relative. I work at a school in Brattleboro. I think we have like 250 children. It all depends on the management of the school and the resources that the town has. Because you can have a small school with poor management and no resources, and your kids are going to fail.
Could you just let him finish his
Sorry.
statement and then?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna welcome comments afterwards, but given that the size of school varies based on transportation, and I know that everybody, and I'm sure with the one-room schoolhouses, everybody was very much in favor of keeping the school that was closest to their housing at that same time period. But as transportation changed, we were able to consolidate, which does bring more resources and more opportunities from an educational perspective for the students. I also believe, and I would defer to the professional educators in that regard, what is the economical benefit? And Act 46 is supposed to be combining to produce both a equal opportunity, but also for economic reasons, to decrease the cost per student of education. And if this board basically is going to take over running all of the town schools with no change in the number of schools or the budgets, there's no economic savings there. You've just created a different board overseeing the same infrastructure.
Before you comment, Bill, is there research on this that you're familiar with? Or
There's
is that?
well, there's an enormous amount of research, but no agreement on what exactly is the perfect size. I've worked in schools that are 700 or 800 elementary students. You can obviously see that there are some economic benefits to having more students in a class, and a teacher can teach 10 kids and a teacher can teach 18 kids. But as you pointed out, travel, distance, tradition, honoring differences, respecting the will of the citizens that approved the budget and the plans, they're all really flexible. Whatever happens with this vote, this board will be taking on a long-term look at the kinds of things you're talking about. I expect that my office will be asked to do a lot of scenarios of how things could look. That's part of the responsibility of the board, to look at different possibilities over a long-term outlook. But in terms of what we're talking about today, the board has not engaged in those types of conversations.
One sec.
I'm good.
Okay, I was gonna say, if you want to finish comment, okay. Trisha?
Kind of on the point that we've been listening to now for a bit, does the board have a strategy to address the approach to new management paradigm under a new unified district, with the demands that creates and what Act 46 is requiring? Have you all thought about your strategic approach to how you're moving forward into the future to address some of these points? Specifically, yeah, let me ask it a little bit more, perhaps more clearly. Understanding that you now have, you will have merged, unified the schools, and opportunities result from that, good and bad, but nonetheless opportunities. Have you looked at how you're going to address the various topics that those opportunities fall under as you look to improve the quality of education under this new merged scenario? So do you have a work plan that you all will use to address moving forward with this new management plan?
Yes, we actually met last August and came up with the year to year and a half to 2 year work plan and put some things in place. And actually, this summer we'll do that same thing. We'll revisit what we've done and look at where we want to go. And it's a yearly, the board does do yearly retreats for a day where we talk about where we want to go. And, it starts with it starts with the end result and then works backwards as to how we're going to get there. We spent a lot of time in the first one talking about the things that we valued about each school, the things that we valued for the children, the opportunities that we thought were really important to capture, and things like that. And then as we worked forward through that plan, we kept going back to those things that we decided were important to remember. And we'll do a similar thing, for the next stage of this.
Is there a copy of this for the public?
Yeah, I believe the board's work plan is posted on the mission and vision statement, as well as the board's work plan are posted on the West River Education.
It's on what website? WRED,
It's a link off of the Wyndham Central. It's a link off the SU website. You go to the Wyndham Central website and there's a link for this board, and then all of our documents are there. I could get it and email it to you. I think I know your email.
Yeah, right.
Okay, be happy to do it. Thanks. Yes?
I have a question. If the smaller schools, Wyndham and Jamaica, do get shut down, which I think there's a good chance they will, if they're doing, I mean, Jamaica's already lost half of their population. And I know that there's been talk, I don't know, of closing the Jamaica school. That means the school choice will be 2 schools. And I'm also wondering what happens to those schools. Are they going to be overcrowded? Are the classrooms going to be overcrowded? And I'm wondering how the residents of Townsend, and I'm actually a resident of Townsend, and Newfane feel about the fact that the children in their towns may end up in overcrowded classrooms. And then what is the next step there? Just in terms of the quality of education, one of the reasons Vermont has such good schools is because they have small class sizes.
So in terms of, in terms of capacity, Townsend can hold up to about 150 kids. This school can hold up to about 140 kids. This school is projected next year to be at 100, and Townsend is projected to be at 117. So if you look at the populations of Jamaica and Wyndham under your scenario, they could easily.
They will be accommodated.
Yes.
More questions?
I guess I have one last question, and that is, I have a hard time understanding why all the other towns got to make that choice. They got to choose the direction that their school was going to take. And now Wyndham does not have that choice. Why is it that, Jamaica, Townsend, Wyndham, and Brookline did not get to choose, did not get to vote on whether Newfane had to join, yet this is happening, and with all the other towns, this is happening with Wyndham. I can see that if Wyndham had chosen not to join and then changed their mind and wanted to join, I could see, yes, that those towns would be, should have the vote as to whether they would accept Wyndham up, but that's not the case. Why is it that all the other towns got to make that choice and Wyndham is not? Some sort of explanation why this vote
Well,
is
that's how Act 46 worked. I mean, everybody had to study it, and then the Agency of Education got to come up with a final plan, and the final plan said that, it was their recommendation that Wyndham join this district, as long as this district was willing to do it. So now that's playing out. I mean,
But just to be clear, we were under no obligation to warn this vote.
We were not, no, we were not.
But if we didn't warn the vote, weren't there some legality issues as to what you guys could decide?
We needed to warn, in order for our voters to have this choice, the vote has to happen before a date certain, June 30th of 2019. And it's correct, we didn't have to warn the vote, but if our voters did have the right to vote, they can vote yes, they can vote no, they can vote however. There's a choice there, and by not warning the vote, we would have denied them that choice.
What do you mean they had the right to vote?
That was given to them as part of Act 46. The West River Education District has
So
this.
you're acting as an instrument of the state to take away Wyndham's right to his own choice. Yeah, you had the choice. You must feel like it's okay that Wyndham doesn't get to make the choice, and that the other towns, even though the other towns were able to make that choice. So, as a board, you must feel that Wyndham's vote is not.
What's the benefit?
an honest
What's the
question.
benefit? What's the benefit to your board to force Wyndham to merge? Just like, what's the benefit? Is it numbers and money? I mean, no.
So, I'd like to answer this question. There is no benefit to this board at all. This board's position is not for or against the article that has been put in front of the voters. Under Act 46, the voters of these districts were given the right to vote on this topic. Our board decided to give the voters that right to vote that was given to them by Act 46. If you don't like what was given in Act 46, talk to your legislators. We didn't write it. We are not pointing anybody in a position. This board, as a whole, there are some individuals on this board that are pointing different directions, but as a board, we are not taking a position. We are providing facts to the public so they can make an informed decision on an issue that they were given the right to vote on. And I think that is very important, that we stick to completely the facts of what this vote means. And I said it last night, and it's very confusing for the public because a lot of what's come out is not true. A lot of the information that's being spread is either completely inaccurate or partially inaccurate, being misconstrued. So I think it's really important that our voters have the opportunity to hear the facts and make an informed decision. That was the right that was given to them by Act 46, and the board has extended that. That does not mean we took a position, whether we agreed with it or not. We just gave the voters the right to vote that they were given. We're not taking a position. If you want to vote yes, vote yes. If you want to vote no, but do it with the facts in front of you. The facts are very straightforward.
You should be done.
And I'm going to. If this vote is yes, Wyndham will be merged into the West River Education District, pre-K through 12, as a full partner, the same as Newfane, Brookline, Townsend, and Jamaica. The Wyndham School Board will be able to finish their business, but will dissolve in December of 2019. The Wyndham students will receive the same educational benefits as the students of Jamaica, Townsend, Brookline, and Newfane get. The Wyndham students' home school will be Wyndham Elementary School. They will still be educated at the Wyndham Elementary School if this vote is yes, unless their families choose to use our choice program, in which case they could choose to go to another school. Likewise, if a resident of Jamaica, Townsend, or Newfane, Brookline, wanted a choice to Wyndham, they could also exercise that right under our choice program. The Wyndham Elementary School students would get access to full-day preschool outside of what the state minimum is. They would also have the Universal Lunch Program, which is a program that we adopted from this school and has expanded to the entire district. The tax rate discussion, Wyndham taxpayers would see a reduction in taxes of 30 cents, which is about $600 a year on a $200,000 house. Jamaica and Townsend taxpayers are going to see an increase of 1 penny on their tax rate, which is about a $20 a year increase in taxes on a $200,000 home. Newfane and Brookline will have no tax impact on this vote. If, for whatever reason, at a point in the future, the Wyndham School, for whatever reason, needed to be closed, it could only be closed by an affirmative vote of the voters of the town of Wyndham. This board cannot vote to close the Wyndham Elementary School if this merger happens. In that vote, the other towns don't get a say. It is solely the voters of Wyndham that have the choice whether the school closes. If the school was to close, if the voters of Wyndham approved an article to close the elementary school, the town gets the ability to purchase that building for $1 with an agreement to utilize it for public
5 years.
For public service for a period of 5 years. If the vote fails on June 11th, if it is a no vote, then we will we'll be forced to hold an additional vote. The towns of Newfane, Brookline, Townsend, and Jamaica will hold a vote whether to let Wyndham out of the unification grades 7 through 12. And then there's 2 paths that we can go down. If that vote passes, so if all 4 towns individually agree to let Wyndham leave 7 through 12, Wyndham would then exit the Leland and Gray portion, or the high school portion of this union. Wyndham would be required to pay back their debts, which we estimated at about $50,000. The 7 through 12 students of Wyndham would either get school choice or could be designated to a high school, depending on the wishes of the town school board. Based on estimates, the taxpayers of Jamaica, Brookline, Newfane, and Wyndham, Townsend, Jamaica, Newfane, Brookline, and Townsend would see a tax increase of up to 6 cents per 100, or up to about $120 a year if they voted to let Wyndham exit. The cost of Wyndham would depend on the tuition set, so we didn't have an estimate on that. If we voted to not let Wyndham, before we go there, on the elementary school side, if we voted to let Wyndham out, there's 2 different paths that can happen as well. The elementary school could continue to function as it is, or the Wyndham Elementary School Board has been given the authority to close the elementary school. So it could either stay open or it could close based on the authorization that's already been given to the board. Currently, preschool, and I want to make sure that this is clarified, preschool is available to Wyndham students at the state 10 hours? Yes. 10 hours that is paid for by the state. So there is preschool. It is not full day public preschool. It is 10 hours a week of preschool. If the voters of any one of the 4 towns voted to not let Wyndham out of the 7 through 12, then they must remain in which case Wyndham would remain in the education district 7 through 12. The K through 6 students would be on one of 2 paths. Either their school is going to close based on their authorization or it's going to stay open. Our district continues to support 2 separate budgets under our current Articles of Agreement. And the anticipation is there'd be no additional tax implications. So those are all the different moving parts and paths that we're discussing. Those are the facts. Not trying to sway anybody any direction, but those are the simple facts of what we are voting on. So hopefully that helps the public understand what it is they're trying to do and what happens next in the event of a yes or a no vote.
Mike?
I just want to piggyback on something Drew said, and there is one way that a small school like Wyndham or Jamaica could be closed without a vote of the town, and it would require a different vote to change the Articles of Agreement. But articles can be amended, so it's a possibility. So just, if we're going to be factual, I just want it to be factual out there too.
I didn't think we could do that.
Could you clarify what you're saying?
Well, the Articles of Agreement do say exactly what Drew said, but I would think, and it's been talked about at other board meetings in the past, that, you know, if the board voted to amend and to warn a question for the towns to amend, you know, then that authority could change.
And that would be a vote of
Individual towns.
Of all the towns.
of all the towns.
Kind of similar to this vote where instead of just Wyndham voting on whether or not to close Wyndham School,
And that would be.
they could warn a vote amending the article saying all 5 towns hold an Australian ballot to decide whether or not to close Wyndham School. It's that simple. They can write an article, you know.
It's not the way it is, but it could.
It's not the way it is, but it could. No, it can happen because this board has the authority.
The Articles of Agreement first.
First, you have, right, well, yeah.
Right.
We would warn a vote to change the Articles of Agreement. Okay? You can't say
There's been no discussion of this. There's been absolutely none of this. This is just
the Australian ballot.
We're talking about what the facts are as presented.
Right.
That is an important distinction that should be made, that the articles can be amended by the vote.
The Articles of Agreement can always be amended by the entire district vote.
Well, right, it's the board that's the entire district, not based on individual towns.
Correct.
And by that same, is it not true, Bill? I think you were the one who mentioned this, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but at one point in time, you said children would be left in their school, homeschool, within the parameters of that, if the merger, if everybody merged. However, teachers or students could be moved if it was physically in the district's best interest, for example, to go from 2 teachers to 1, or if you have 1 third grader here and 1 third grader, and you could cherry pick.
You could not move the students. Only school choice can move the students.
Okay.
Teachers
Teachers,
Teachers are employees of the West River Education District and could be placed in different grades or in different school buildings. That is correct.
Lee, you're next, Joe. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Joe. So I would just thank everyone for a good conversation. I also found it very interesting that out of 15 people who attended today, 8 were from Wyndham. And we are going to have an informational meeting on Monday, June 3rd.
That one was in the chief, right?
What's that?
Time you choose on that one?
I thought it was at 7. 7.
6:30 it said on your website.
No,
It's always going to be the time right.
It's always been 7.
Yeah, okay. So one of the reasons that the Wyndham School Board has basically taken a position in opposition to this merger is because we have passed a budget unanimously at our town meeting, which had a significant increase due to pre-K special ed costs. We have signed contracts with our teachers, which we understand if this were to go through, those contracts would be null and void. There are a lot of uncertainties here. You know, we talk about the transportation and there are it's hard, I think. I think some good points have been made tonight that it's really hard to make a judgment about merging if we don't know what's going to be available to us. And just as our teachers, and Sally is one of our treasured teachers, she's been working at our school for 25 years. Our other teacher's been with us for 12, 14, I don't know. Their future would be uncertain. And in fact, if the number of teachers was reduced at our school, because our other teacher, Mickey Parker Jennings, also beloved, is a principal, he would probably stay. And Sally, in her last year before retirement, would potentially be moved to another school. The bus driver's contract would be null and void, and Kathy's husband, Cord, is our bus driver. There's nothing to say that he would be willing to drive a bus and keep in mind, the Wyndham School Board actually organizes the bus route. We have local knowledge, and we organize the bus route at our August meeting. And that would be really uncertain. So at Step-Up Day, and we are going to send the 5th graders just in case, they are going to start the bus really early. Because right now, and I am a school bus driver, and I occasionally fill in for Cord, right now we leave the school and we head south, picking up kids. But in order to make this happen, the bus driver is going to have to go north and go all the way to the farthest home and then work their way back, which is why the bus route, instead of starting at 7, is going to start at 6:10. So there are some intricacies here in this bus route that you are not taking into consideration. And these are uncertainties. And I understand there are some parents here tonight for whom this would be a plus. This is one of the problems with, in my view, Act 46, which Bob pointed out I did vote for, and I think it's the worst vote I ever took in my 21 years at the legislature. There are some intricacies here, and there are some problems because while Townsend is going to offer after-school program and full-time pre-K, that's very attractive. There are parents who work in Brattleboro who would like their 6th grader to go down to Townsend.
And so that's very tempting to them. If we were going to have real equity, we would be having those programs in Wyndham. And we don't. And there's no, and I took your point, Drew, you know, it's not going to be equal, but what is equal, what is equitable? So we would like our school to be just as attractive as Townsend, but that's not going to happen under this scenario as far as I can tell. So this is why the Wyndham School Board is opposing this. We would like to have another year to make some sensible choices about our school, to honor our teachers' contracts, and to basically be able to, you know, I said last night in Jamaica, there are some parents who would potentially, if the school ever closed, like to be able to send their kid to Floodbrook. We're a mountain town. We're at the top of a hill. All the rest of these towns are right along the river. And there are people who live on the north end of town for whom Chester is a much better choice. And their kids right now go to Green Mountain Union High School. They might choose to go to Chester Andover. They might choose to go to Floodbrook. They might choose to go to Grafton. And so we'd like the opportunity, if we are going to be closed, to have the opportunity to offer that choice, and it's more choice, to our parents. So for this reason, and probably 5 others, we would ask the voters to vote no.
So I just want to clarify something. So if it's a no vote and Wyndham does close, and we could get school choice, this is my understanding from the last meeting, wherever we would send them to, they would get paid the state $15,000, I think you said, and then whatever was extra or on top of that. So if we wanted to send them to Townsend anyways, that would be an extra cost to us, because then would be a $20,000 cost, so I'd have a $4,000 difference to make up, right?
No.
Just to clarify, yeah, just to clarify, under school choice in Vermont, if you are a school, so just let me clarify. Under the scenario you're talking about, Wyndham is not operating a K through 6 school. Is that the scenario you're talking about? Okay. So under that scenario, the Wyndham School District would present to their voters what tuition they would like to pay to approved independent schools or public schools. For approved independent school, the number you came up with, the $15,568, I believe it is the average tuition. And that is the most common for approved independent schools, for schools that do not operate a school. But for a public school, it is incumbent upon the school district to pay the allowable tuition that is approved by the state to go to that school. And that can be anywhere from $10,000 to $19,000, depending on what is applied for and what is approved. So you have to pay what is approved for a public school, and you can pay the average tuition for an approved independent school.
Excuse me, Bill. Didn't we set a tuition rate as a board, like, isn't it around 17,000 or something?
So we have a 17,000 rate for middle school and high school, and we have 14,000 for elementary. So in that case, it would be less than the 15,568.
Okay.
So everything that Carolyn said about, you know, there's like a logistical nightmare happening in Wyndham, where part of Wyndham is so far away from this district that it really just doesn't make sense for a lot of families to be part of it. However, what will happen if there's a no vote and Wyndham gets their independence? During this next school year, we're technically still part of, the middle school is still part of the district for a while until that gets all sorted out. So the current 5th graders, so the people who wish to send their kids to Leland and Gray, is there an option? I mean, do we need to, what's our options as far as if there's no vote and we want to send our kids to Leland and Gray? What do we need to do?
Are you talking specifically about 6th graders?
Yeah. Because it sounds to me, and sure it's gonna happen. There's gonna be a year here. I'm guessing Wyndham is gonna have a no vote and they're gonna have their autonomy, which they worked really hard for, and I respect that. But what's gonna happen in this year of flux for these fifth graders who ultimately are gonna be part of Leland and Gray? Like the South Wyndham people are gonna be part of Leland and Gray eventually. What will happen?
So the statute says that whatever you charge for tuition, whether that's zero or, as Mike was saying, 17,000, that's what you have to charge for tuition for all. If this vote, if everything stays the same as it is now, and the vote is no on June 11th, the board more than likely will task me with working with our attorney to see if there's any possibility that goes beyond that blanket statute. But until this vote happens, it doesn't really make sense to start spending that money to engage a possibility that may or may not be necessary. For kids in 7 through 12, nothing would be absolutely different than what it is now. So it's a very personal and very specific challenge for families that would have students that would be rising sixth graders next year, that I can't give a definitive answer of what the board's options would be. I'm sorry.
I do have one question. When we talk about that 30 cents, how does that figure into the fact that Wyndham being a giving town, how does that, because the taxes that we budgeted and approved is not the tax rate that's set locally by the state. As a matter of fact, it's double what it is for if we just the school by itself, just Wyndham. So how does the 30 cents now get calculated back into the state and returns the tax rate we get from the state in July or August?
That is the estimated tax rate of the 30 cents.
That's the 30 cents.
The end after all those after the money goes in, comes out, and plays it all out with equalized pupils, that is that 30 cents.
All right, thank you.
And I don't want to confuse things by bringing up our desire to leave the Leland and Gray Union District, but it's come up, and right now, our students who choose to go to Green Mountain are technically required to attend 7th and 8th grade here at Leland and Gray. And it just doesn't seem like that's a very good educational choice, given the fact that that's a time when you establish a lot of your connections and your network with your fellow students. And there are families that do send their kids to Green Mountain who sort of jump through some hoops in order to make it possible for their kids to go to Green Mountain for 7th and 8th. But that's one of the reasons why there are a number of parents who are very interested in leaving the Leland and Gray Union. It's not because we don't like Leland and Gray, it's just because there are folks who are more oriented toward the north side of town.
And didn't we have that at one time?
Yeah.
I have a question that's probably more for Carolyn. How many students are at the north end of town? Isn't it just the Bechet family?
Well, they're the Clays, and I'm not sure if
We don't
wanna
have any
still-
Clays though, in our school.
There's Shepherd
No, but they're in high school.
This is,
Yeah,
okay.
we probably shouldn't be mentioning.
Really, we should not be having this conversation. Also, I just wanted to let you know, we're going till 8:30 to answer questions, but we're gonna try and keep this on schedule, so 10 more minutes. If you have something you wanna make sure you get heard on, please ask. All right. Well,
Executive session.
thank you all for coming. We do need a short executive session.
Rich, it won't be long.
Legal matter.
cool, we're out of executive session. Do you want to make a recommendation, or should we just make a motion?
I'm recommending to the West River.
To the board.
I'm recommending to the board that you direct the superintendent to retain counsel for a legal matter specific to our official name of West River Modified Unified Union School District.
All right, so does anybody want to make that motion?
Okay, I will move that the superintendent, what am I saying? Retain counsel regarding a legal matter for the West River Modified Unified Union School District.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Lindsay and seconded by Drew. Any discussion on the motion at all? All right, ready to vote? All in favor of retaining counsel, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Anything else? All right, there's a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right, thank you for coming.